I know that this is getting a little off the subject, but you have written a lot of poetry, and poetry is probably your second love, maybe first love, art's second, or vice versa, I don't know. I'd like you to read this insight. You wrote this. It doesn't, I don't think this is a correct painting for it, but was it similar painting to this that you
Well, I have the one for that painting. That particular painting is called Plant Genesis, a Dream Sequence 1, and it's on the same kind of thinking as these. Rising from the womb of Mother Earth, life sprang as a plant which slowly became man. In its growing, great winds and great clouds arose and enveloped the frightened but hungry new life. There were gifts of songs and dances and other living things, both great and small. When the winds and clouds were gone, the earth was covered with many new things and possibilities. The man that was left, extending his hand, appeared to be reaching for some mysterious and invisible force. The one on Insight, it's a form sort of like this, but it has the feeling of a pregnant human form, and the hand is turned up, and she's looking into her hand, and you can see the very large swollen belly, and the title of that painting is Insight. I'm sorry we don't have that one, but this was the writing for it. Insight. Spring is eternal. The bulge in the belly of Mother Earth is forever, and her fruit is perpetual and good. Her children are gifted but must unfold her ways, and this is not an easy task. The shackles of earthly experience are disruptive and painful and leave sores of blinding confusion and atrophied spirit. These are obstacles in the path to harmony, and harmony is the spiritual river within we must all flow to know our rightful peace. Again, these are in ways not explanations, because I don't believe in explaining paintings, but they're a prose poetry kind of thing that are meant to be looked at in concert with art, and not to be an explanation of, or the art, an illustration of the writing, but rather in concert they tend to create or clarify an emotion, a feeling.
Okay, I'm going to put this on pause in a minute with a retrospective on Frank Howell's lithographs, but we're going to look at probably 25 different images, and a lot of them have to do with the creation and the beginning of life. And what is the title of this first one we're looking at?
Southwest Floral.
Can you talk about that a little bit, Frank? Give us your feelings when you created the image, what you're thinking.
Well, this was this whole concept of the tree of life. This is very, very early thinking or beliefs of the Genesis in terms of the Anastasia, and it's kind of what I have in mind in this new series. But this print has to do with the tree of life and the forms rising out of the earth. The tree came out of the earth. The tree is very important even in Christianity. The tree is the Christmas tree. In all villages there was a pole that was in the center of the villages, of Indian villages. That's still true in many present-day cultures, very important as the maypole. These are all things that still carry on from the old days, and this represents the tree of life. Out of the earth came the tree of life, and the story goes that the maiden, a young maiden, climbed the tree, and when she reached the top, she was impregnated by the sun, and that began the people. This concept here is this whole thinking that I go that all things are in a continuum. The Indian beliefs, and this is why I relate so to that, and not that I'm so much interested in the vestiges or fetishes of the Indians, or even historical things, but primary things that have to do with this continuum and this things that all things are a part of another, and out of the earth the tree, and that flows very, very continuously and smoothly into these clouds and into the human forms, and dissipate again into the clouds or the sky. It's this constant flowing. In my work, there's always this sensation of movement. No matter what the work is, you get a sensation of the wind, of movement, of a kind of lyrical flowing through the work. And all of this is meant to enhance this idea of this constant flow of time, of tradition passing by us, and all these things, these messages on the winds, if you will. All of my work, in some way or another, carries that theme. And I don't know why, and I don't really know where it came from, but it's very important to me, and it keeps coming.
Yeah, it appears and reappears in your work. Okay, let's go on to the next print, or next lithograph. That one was a two-color lithograph print? The first one?
Yes. And this was, I think, 5 or 6 color. And it's called Elk Dreamer. This one also is sold out. Even in this work, you get a sensation of the tide floating and of the animal forms, floating right up to the antlers. It seems to take off into this black void, which represents a spiritual place. And, so you get that tie, and into the eyes, which are very dark and hollow. This to me is a kind of penetration. It's you go into that person because of that. It's a kind of intensity and draws you in.
Oh, this is a nice one coming up. What's the title of this one? Whispers.
This is called Whispers.
This Elk Dreamer, that's sold out. What is that currently selling for?
It was $1,250.
What does it come out at?
500.
500.
Yeah. This was Whispers. This is just a 2-color print, and this is the idea of the crows as messengers, messengers of mysterious things, of spiritual things, of dark things, and of things that man cannot know in any other way, but to get these from the people who deal in other forms, in other ideas, and other sources. And in this case, the crows were very important to the Indians, and so I've created a headdress, if you will, a place where the crows reside with the shaman.
Now this is a similar idea to a sculpture you're working on.
Yes.
And is a sculpture basically going to give the same feeling as your
yes,
right here?
Yeah. The sculpture, though, is going to be over 5 feet wide. There's the head, and all the crows keep coming out, much as you see there, and it'll be over 5 feet wide when it's done.
Excellent. Let's go on to the next one.
Okay, this is another variation. This is called Night Chorus. This is a hand-colored lithograph. It too is sold out. All of these you've seen are sold out. That Whispers sold, that opened at $300 and sold at $550 or $600, and it's gone. This is Night Chorus. There were 25 in the edition of this, and we sold this out in just a few days. I don't remember what it was. 5 hours, I guess.
We had them in our galleries that sold out in the first hour.
Well, probably, because this we could sell these anytime that we ever had them produced on. These were very involved. It's basically the same kind of theme as Whispers.
Let me crank this camera. Maybe I can get that lithograph way over there in the background that you're working on. Can I catch it? This is not really a good way to present it, but tell us a little bit about the new lithograph you're working on. It's got a similar feeling to this one right here, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it does in terms of form, but in this one up here that I'm working on now, that print is 20 inches high and 55 inches long, and it's meant to be a bird. It's based on the idea of the phoenix, and the phoenix bird that rose from the ashes and returned to life. And this is the idea of I'm not sure what the title's going to be, but it's going to have to do, it's going to do with deal with the Indian rising again in terms of a spiritual thing, all based on this idea, the mythological idea of the phoenix.
I just want to kind of capture that and have the same kind of basic flow to only on a much larger form without the birds, obviously. Okay, the next piece you want to go to?
Do you want to do first?
Yeah, first one, and that's a 4-color lithograph. It's sold out. It's there were 30 in that edition. I've done very, very small editions. That's pretty good.
That's a beautiful piece.
It's very straight. There's nothing very mysterious about that.
No, do you want to do this one?
No, you never show that, Mark. You never show that.
Well, then we can stop and get
You want to stop and...
There were 50 in the edition of this. It too is sold out. It opened at $600 and sold at $1,400 or $1,450, something like that. The last ones. This is just a simple 2-color lithograph, but it was one of the most popular prints that I've done.
Where did you pull this one at? Was this done at Sharks?
I did this one with Sharps Lithography. This is before I had my own studio.
Bud Shark is next came when I graduated also. He is
No, Bud studied it in Wisconsin.
He worked with the people in Albuquerque.
No, he never did. And but he worked in London at Progressive.
Oh, is that where it was? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Recording now, we're going to be looking at a series of lithographs that were done over how many years?
Oh, the last couple.
Okay. The first one, Ponies of the Fire, was it's a beautiful piece. Can you tell us a little bit about that one, Frank?
Yeah, this piece was in edition of 75, and it's got like 4 or 5 left is all. It's selling at around $1,000.
Okay.
It opened at 500. It's this has to do with images coming up out of the fire. You see the very warm colors, and this is again the story of the shaman sprinkling, in this case, horsehair into the fire, and out of the fire rose images of many, many horses. This had to do with a Cheyenne raid on the Pawnee, and they came away stealing most of their horses from this village.
That's a beautiful piece. Okay, the next piece is, the title of it is Old Song, hand colored.
Yeah, Old Songs is one of the new series of 4 that I did for American Design. These are in editions of 200. There are 4 in the series, all the same size. These images were printed in 3 colors and then hand colored. Each one takes about an hour and a half to do.
Yeah, I'll move on over to the second one.
Yeah, the next one, this is called Summer Morning.
Okay.
And the last 2 that I have in that series, we don't have.
Okay, this particular one, November Wind, we had it, whoops, I'm getting a big glare from this light.
That was the first one I did like this, and American Design sold out practically all of these in less than 3 weeks.
Okay. Over here we have a few watercolors that you've done that are pretty small in size, or this is a watercolor anyway. Or is it pen and ink or watercolor?
That's watercolor and pencil.
Okay. Now I'm going to be panning some of these other pieces.
And the one up above is a new black and white litho.
Uh-huh.
The one below is litho that's, I can't remember, I think it was 4 or 5 colors, and then hand coloring besides called flowers. The one over
The light is closer, Chris.
that you're pointing at now is a watercolor.
I'm not getting. Just a little out of focus over there. These are the new releases.
Yeah, and these are the 2 new releases.
Which one is the first of the two?
The first of the 2 was the one over there.
Okay.
And that's Spring's new song. I can't remember, that was 4 or 5 colors with hand coloring.
Okay.
The second one in the set, these really should be as a set, is called Genesis. And this is, again, these plant forms like in the first, but 2 figures, male and female. And represents a kind of union and
Creation or
creation.
Okay, I'm going to fan these down here. We've had this one.
Yeah. Southwest Forum.
Okay, we have a small hand-colored lithograph
Yeah,
here.
these are all hand-colored lithographs. They're up in the wall, Paul.
Oh, they are?
At least
Okay.
easier for you to photograph.
Okay. Most of these were done. These were done in the last 2 years, Frankie.
Yes. Oh, they were done last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Chris, you're going to have to get closer with the light. Oh. Kind of keep it bouncing straight up against the ceiling. Okay, so you want to talk about this matrix piece, Frank?
This is one of the hand-colored versions of the Matrix. It was done in a lot of, this was all done in watercolor. This was the large litho that I did. It's 36 by 48. This was done, are you getting that glare?
I'm getting it, but I think I'm getting a better image with the clarity. Okay, go ahead. It was done
In California at Ocean Works. And it was done in a huge piece of onyx. I drew on this for 90 days, about 18 hours a day for 3 weeks. This was a lot of work.
All right.
It's one of my favorite pieces.
How long does it take hand color limit?
About a full week.
Okay.
And this is a 5-color, and 5-color, and 5-color called Sunday's Visit, Journey's Gift, and the larger one is Sky Song. All of these were done in the last year.
And all of them are about sold out?
Yes. Well, there's availability on these 3, but not very limited.
Okay, these are a couple of black and whites you recently released.
Yeah, brand new. Yeah.
Okay.
On paper.
Shade light more right there so that's a straight down.
Approximately 30 by 40.
Look at the painting over here, Paul. You don't need me. Do you want me to get this one out?
No, we'll just walk over. We have light.
No, it's not very good.
No, we'll just get down on the floor and shoot that one. There's a poster we don't have. Don't worry about that.
Paul, do you splice it and put it all together?
No. All right. This is this. Okay. There's going to be, how many birds did he say? Is it crows coming out? 13 of them or so?
Actually, I think this one fits right here.
Yeah. Okay, that'll be like 5.5 feet wide. Getting it?
Yeah.
Did you shoot Lithograph messenger?
No, I didn't. I want you to hold that up. That's Lakota Messenger. That's the first in the series sold to American Design. Sold out in, what, 3.5 weeks. You started painting or something that you just haven't finished, or?
Just something he hasn't finished.
Okay.
Get on the picture.
This table that's in front of us is where Frank signs his lithographs. Poster. And way in the back.
I think it was UCLA, Purdue, Ohio State, Iowa State, Aldrich Museum, Arizona State University, Penn State, I don't know, Columbus. There was a museum in Columbus, I can't remember the name.
And what are the pieces selling for now?
Oh, that package originally sold in its entirety to an oil company in Colorado Springs. Arizona State wanted to buy it, but they could not find the benefactor at that time. They wanted the entire package, and so did this university, or a museum in Ohio. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, it sold here, and I can't remember what the original selling price was, $79,000 or something, or $80,000, and it just resold for $125,000 in its entirety. People are keeping it as a unit, which is real nice.
Was it expressing a specific tribe?
No, it wasn't. This began, and I might as well relate some of this right now. This began a search for, it was a kind of spirituality that I'm involved in, that I feel very strongly about. I relate, the reason I do Indian subjects is and people say it's Indian subjects, but if you really know my work, they're really not so much Indian as they are, a spiritual thing. It's far beyond that. I do not paint Indians as objects. I'm not interested in all the vestiges or any of the other things strictly for that. The people that I do could just as well be people from anywhere in the world. Basically, I paint man and his spirituality. Much of the things that you see represent a kind of transition from man as a physical being in this physical shell to a spiritual thing. The Navajos believe, for instance, that we are currently in a fifth world. The fifth world being one of our physical being as we are seen, walking, talking, and so on, existing as physical beings. The sixth world being an evolvement into a spiritual existence. And whether you take that as being a kind of parable or very literal really doesn't matter. The idea being is that we evolve to this level of spirituality where we exist in a very ethereal and intense and real way, in unity with in harmony with all things.
So do you believe that man and everything that is with man as far, because I'll see you put feathers and birds and pieces of, maybe fiber or living things. So what you're saying is that the movement to be spiritually involved involves also man, but all the things that are created on earth.
All things. Yes.
And do you believe that those things are already are aware of that sixth world,
they exist.
that spiritual? They're in that already.
That's why, this painting that was passed around, this red painting, I'll get into that painting, but I believe, I do not read about Indians. I do not spend time studying anything about, their vestiges or anything else. These things come in an entirely different way, and it's very fascinating. I really hate to get into these things because it starts sounding a little bit hocus pocus, but it does happen. That I think that if you really let yourself go and you get in tune with things, and you can open these doors to the subconscious, and they open however briefly they do open, and you look in and you can see, and you begin to understand all kinds of things about how these people felt. And then in that case, then people don't become Indian or black or anything else. They become people, all in this air, all in this ethereal state. And you begin to understand things and know of things that you really had no previous knowledge of. And I truly believe that. This information comes to you. I put this painting together, for instance, I just started painting it in the way I do. I do not make drawings for paintings. I do not do any kind of preliminary paintings or anything else. I just begin on the canvas, and it comes to me in a color or in a shape or some way. It comes to me, and it's always different. And it's just I believe a lot like Michelangelo when he'd say, you know, it's in the bronze or in the granite, the marble. It's there, and you look at it. And I believe that about a canvas. You know, I will sit hours and hours, days in front of a blank canvas, and it emerges somehow. And maybe it's all kinds of things that happen, but it comes out of that.
Frank, I want to go back to your imagery just for a second. Since you predominantly use Native American or Indian imagery, how do the Native Americans respond to your art?
Very well.
What?
Of all of the Indian artists that they know, the response of the people I get is that I most closely touch this element of the spirituality. You know, there are people they like for how they portray them and so on, and people that they just don't like at all. But in terms, they seem to relate to the spiritual thing more than anything else. I have a box in a locked cabinet that is loaded with, and I have all kinds of little gifts and eagle feathers that have been sent to me from all over the United States. An eagle feather, you know, is representative. That's kind of a very high form of compliment when you get that, and you know, it's traditional. And the people that are very traditional in their thought, Native Americans, seem to relate to my work very well. And I'm sure there are those people that it offends. I'm not saying that I'm universally accepted by Native Americans, because there are different points of view.
I missed something on the sixth world as the world to which we evolved out of the fifth, or that's what the novel believes.
Yeah.
Spend just a little bit of time on that.
Okay, yeah, we evolved to the sixth level in their thinking and also in my thinking. And it's, you know, it really doesn't matter whether it's a parable or, you know, an idea, or whether it's really true. But the sixth world is one of a spiritual existence, one where we exist on a much higher plane as people. And that's a plane where we are in tune with all things in a very harmonious way.
Have you studied or read a lot about Oriental philosophy?
Some.
Or did that
Yes.
influence your images?
Oh, yes. I've studied a lot of philosophy. I've taught philosophy at various levels. But yes, it does. But the interesting thing is, and the reason why this is so vital, and I believe so very, very important, is that this is neither a religion or a philosophy. It defies the, you know, strict definitions of either, as all, you know, really important beliefs or ideas of man do. You'll find that, you know, the interesting thing is I wanted to do a series of works on this whole concept of Genesis. Well, despite the differences in ideas from various, you know, formal or structured religions and ideas around the world, the concepts of the Genesis, whether it be from the Aborigines of Australia, American Indians, or Christianity, is basically the same. Very much the same. There are all kinds of little variations and colors on the thing and slightly different approaches from here and there. For instance, primitive, the Anastasi believe that man evolved from the earth, from the tree of life. And out of the earth grew this tree, and a maiden climbed to the top of this tree and was impregnated by the sun, thus beginning man on earth. Common beliefs is, of course, that the powers came from above. In terms of Christianity, all powers came from the sky, but it doesn't really matter about how that evolved. It's still there. The tree of life, in all of these things begin to overlap, because our Christmas tree is really a symbol of the same kinds of things as that center post that was always in the primitive villages. It's still a tree. The Christmas tree. In all religions, there's the concept of the tree, which has to do with the Genesis. Even in Christianity, the idea of the Garden of Eden and the tree. The whole thing is all tied together. This all runs throughout, all forms of religions and or philosophical concepts about the Genesis. Basically, I'm involved with that. And, many of the things I talk about in my work, or I relate to my work, have to do with this idea of whispers or of the wind. The wind also is a very important concept to writers, philosophers, artists. On the winds come all kinds of ideas, all kinds of concepts that relate from the fathers. And from the fathers, you mean not your father or your father's father, but the fathers, the people of the beginning, way back. And these are messages that are carried on the air, and I truly believe that you can be in tune with those things if you allow yourself to be in tune and to be harmonious with that. And I'm not saying I exist in that plane all the time. That would be absolutely foolish. I truly believe that these days you can only be in tune with that on a very brief level, very brief moment. And it's like, the doors of the subconscious open. When you get so involved with your work, there are times when I'm painting along in the sky or in an area, and all of a sudden I sense, this is going to sound like a meeting of born-again Christians, but this is difficult to talk about. All of a sudden I'll be painting along, and all of a sudden I truly sense God, if you will, but God in a very big way, okay? It's like something is there, and I sort of see into things, and all kinds of things happen to me, ideas, and then all of a sudden, it's just like this sudden closing, and it just kind of breaks up everything. And that's fortunate, because we couldn't deal in that level, of course, because you'd be insane. You just could not exist within there. You couldn't cope with all the things that come and go inside of there. So then what the artist does, whether it be writer, painter, whatever, looks back into that, and what he sees then is after image, or what he understands is all of the ramifications of that brief moment. Okay.
Really,
yeah. And you go back and you try to remember, you try to recall as much as you can do. You'd be insane. You just could not exist within there. You couldn't cope with all the things that come and go inside of there. So then what the artist does, whether it be writer, painter, whatever, looks back into that, and what he sees then is after image, or what he understands is all of the ramifications of that brief moment. Okay.
Really,
yeah. And you go back and you try to remember, you try to recall as much as you can do.
Isn't that the right side, though?
Well, sure. That has, sort of. That has other things, concepts, but that's sort of the way I work. Now, not all paintings come on that level either. To say that that's the way I deal with every piece of art I do, is foolish. There are paintings that are magic, and there are paintings that are paintings. And not all artists do magic paintings ever. And, you know, some get a few. And the paintings that are magic, I call magic, are paintings that come in spite of you, not because of you. They happen, you know, you couldn't do that again. You could paint, you know, I could paint anything I've ever painted time and time again. I could paint faces and sit right here and not look at anything. I don't use models. I don't, you know, look at photographs. I don't use anything, but I could paint faces until, you know, hell freezes over. It's no problem. But it doesn't mean that any of those are going to be magic. You know, it's, once in a while they happen, and most of the time they don't. That doesn't mean that what you do is not high quality all the time, but, you know, for instance, the Mona Lisa is a magic painting. You know, it's not just a painting. There's a magic, and it's rather inexplicable. You know, you can look at the thing, you just don't know why, but there's something there. The Pietà is the same kind of thing. You know, there are many works of art that artists did, and all of a sudden, there's one that is magic.
Is the specter of a face in Journey's gift conscious or unconscious? It's a small, one of your smaller works, and there's a face up in the upper right-hand corner.
No, that's something that just happens in. There are lots in my work. I seem to somehow, and you know, it may be the way I work or what I do, but I seem to create a kind of, there's an aura around the work that just sort of happens, and I don't do that consciously. Sometimes I have, but unlike that piece and a couple of others, it just sort of happened, and you know, it just is there. So,
this would be magic, probably.
That was a very magic painting. That was a nice piece. That painting, you know, the poster is a real nice poster, but the painting itself is about, I think, 4 foot across and whatever it was down, I don't remember, but that was a real magic painting to work on. Some great things happened. I sort of lost track of where I was in the flow. If anybody can pick me up or want to talk.
This is going to be magic for me.
To bring it back down to that
Beautiful.
It says to Paul from Frank Howell,
who's responsible for all that I am and ever will be.
Can you get it on the camera? What media did you use?
This is just a little study of the big print that you're getting. The print is like 18.5 inches by 32. Okay, and all the color plates are done. In fact, they're proofing it today. I'm hoping that by Thursday night we will have a completed proof for 2 or 3 or 4. I'm shooting for 1 for each gallery.
Frank, would you talk a little bit about what you believe about, or what the Indians believe about the crows?
Sure, I'll
Because that appears in the
I'm going to show you these things. Do you want to go through these one at a time, or
Yeah,
just
why
pass
don't
them
you,
around?
this is going to be real important to get it on camera, so zero the camera in on these, and he'll talk about each one, and then we'll pass them around.
These are small acrylics. And when you hold them and I pass them around, hold them on the sides, okay? Because they're coated, and then I don't want any of this stuff scratched or anything. And I don't normally do this, but I wanted you to see what's going on. This old woman is kind of fascinating. I get involved with these things, and some people say they're sort of ugly and they sort of get gnarly, but I think they're real important to do every once in a while. This one's rather straight, okay? But you're going to see a range of things that I do in terms of feel and approaches, whether it be, you know, a rather traditional approach to painting, just kind of straight impact stuff, or moving it along to, moving it along to, you know, the more ethereal design approaches. Again, this is acrylic. Okay. Let me have all of those. I want to move them and pick them up in order.
It's called December's Wind or something.
Yeah, I guess. I don't remember. Okay. That's the first one I did in this series. This was the second one I did in this series. And by the way, this is the second print.
Beautiful.
First is the crows.
Beautiful.
And this is a second print, and it's going to be a big print. It's 30 by 30 inches. You know, full bleed. It's not going to have an edge. This one, wherever that one is, that one is has like a 3/4 inch border all the way around, white border, so it can be floated or within a window in the matting and framing, which is important to you. This will be a full bleed, edge to edge. This will probably have a few more feathers that come right down this way because I sort of restructured this shape and everything, but basically the colors are the same, so on. The colors in that piece, that study for that litho, are real accurate the way it's going to be. Probably a little bit lighter. You know, that tended to get a little muddy because that was a study that was never intended to be shown. That was just done with some acrylic and Prismacolor, and it's just sort of real gunky. You know, it's just. But this one is a painting that I did as a study for as a study for the next litho, and I started that yesterday. The title is called Yellow Face. Yellow Face.
This collection.
I do my little routine.
This collection is going to be real important for your collectors. If you all listen to this, because if you have a collector that's really into a nice collection, this is going to be 12 pieces. And I don't know what Frank's situation is, but he'll be in Italy for a year, and there won't be anything coming out. There may be something. There will be? Well, that's good.
I'm going to go to, I didn't even get to tell you, I'm going to go to Portofino and do a series of my first etchings.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay, the next piece was this, which is also the third litho. Now, it's not quite complete because I think I'm going to do some kind of ties and some bead things and something else in here. But it's real close. I'm going to do some other stuff, adjustments on this. But I wanted a piece that sort of went along with these other crows. Every time I've done crows, it's like, you know, you're off and running. People like the crows. Some people will say to you, you know, I don't like the crows, especially in that one there. You know, why are they wrapped? Is that blood? You know, they're going to get, some people are going to run scared, okay? But you're going to find many more people that love the crows. And we'll talk about, I'm going to talk about that right after I get those pieces. Again, the crows. And I wanted to get a couple of pieces at least that have the ideas with the crows, and we'll pass it around.
That's a beautiful.
These things, this painting I do not want to go out any place. The next three I'm going to show you are being held back for this show in Cherry Creek, which I don't even know if you know about. This show that's coming.
December 16th.
There are some that are very, very special to me. That's one, these next two. This one kind of scares Paul a little bit. He likes it, but it's a little bit different, but it's the way I like to work, okay? It's, in fact, it's the way I'm happiest. When I start getting tired and I start pushing toward the end of a show, things start happening. You've probably had artists tell you this, that, you know, somehow things just begin to click. And I always tend to go toward this much more clean, surreal approach. And this is a very special painting, so it's simply called Red Earring. It's just much more clean and graphic. I'm going to do a 50 by 72 inch painting with this.
It's wonderful.
But see, people have taste.
It could be any. It could be anyone.
Okay.
Not
One of the
American
things that
Indian.
bothered me about my work, and I'll be really honest with you, is that when I did that past wind show, this is a kind of interesting story, and you'd think that people that are in real authority, real knowledgeable people would understand what I'm doing with my work, but they don't. Oftentimes, imagery gets in the way of seeing what the work's about. When I did that past wind show, they were trying to schedule it at museums and colleges. It was sent off to Arizona State to a man who, he doesn't mind me telling this story because he thinks it's rather funny now, but he was very, very well known. His name is Rudy Turk. He was the director. He's known all over the Southwest. Very important man in the museum and college art programs. I sent him the catalog, And he sent me back a letter, and he said, well, the people that were sending the show, at this time we're just not interested in Mr. Howell's work, as we do not do Indian imagery. Okay, and although the drawing looks nice, all this, that, is just not the kind of thing that we want to show at the museum, and so on. And I was really disappointed because I thought these are people that are really very knowledgeable, and this show represented such a different thing that, and you'd have to see the book to appreciate the difference, but they're much more ethereal than these even. And so I kind of sat back and I thought, God, there's something wrong. These are Indians and people aren't seeing these. About 3 weeks later, I got a call from Rudy apologizing for what happened with this show. And he said, he picked up these things and, they're really not Indians at all. We're just not dealing with Indian subjects. And he had totally missed it. The whole thing being is that this has happened time and time again. If people can get into it a little bit, it goes beyond just Indian imagery. This big painting, it represents a kind of thing that I'd like to do, is to move away from that kind of dependency. Not that I want to do away with Indian things and that kind of thing, but I want to make sure that people are able to see my work and see what I'm doing. And I like to throw in these other things because I think it's a bit expansive, not only for me, but the spectator. And the last one I just did the other night, and it's exquisite. I like my own work. Again, with these, I'm doing a lot of things that are, they're representational. I'll never leave this really fine drawing thing because that's something I have, and I know that, and I thought that would be wrong. But expanding the concepts of the figure, stretching and moving around, making use of some other things to create.
I guess the color.
So when this comes around, take a real good look at this face. These are all acrylics that you see.
You just Prismacolor over them?
No, these are all acrylics. These are just brush. No pencil on these. The only one that was acrylic was that first print study, which was not meant to be a thing to be shown, really.
Which one? Mine? I'm proud of that.
Well, I know it's nice, but it wasn't meant to be as a painting. It was just done differently.
This is why I want you to print look on your paintings.
I don't understand.
Yes, don't feel cheated.
Could you clarify something for us? Will these be lithos, or are these going to be just for the show, original pieces for the show?
This is a study for one. I will never do a painting that's a litho, okay?
All right.
When I say this is a litho, this is similar. These were done as studies for lithos.
These were, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Not
these are
all
not
of these.
unique
Not that one.
pieces to be
Yes.
sold
That
at
one
some
is.
time? Okay.
That one is. This
Okay.
one is.
Okay.
And all of them are.
All right.
But
Okay.
the litho will be similar to that one.
So it is a study for a litho.
Yeah, it was originally as a study for a litho, but it's a unique piece.
Okay.
But I do not set out to reproduce my paintings as lithos.
Good. Wonderful.
How is your painting coming along for you to the business? How is it?
It's finished.
Probably the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
Oh, it was great. I saw the little study when I was interested. It's just wonderful.
Well, if you get over there in the next week or so, we move this meeting over there.
They built the Denver store right outside the door of our new gallery.
You're going to do a promotion, I'm sure,
They
aren't
built the
you?
Denver store right outside your door.
Where our new gallery is going.
It's interesting, you think, Paul.
You're going to do a big promotion, I'm sure, at the same time Denver does their big promotion on that, aren't you?
I don't know. I think so. We'll probably do something.
What are they doing there?
April 3rd,
March
6th.
Something is March 1st or 6th or something.
Did you say they're going to do their bags, the whole entire promotion, opening of the store is going to be based on?
For 5 years, their promotion will be based on that work of mine.
And we're having another Frank Howell show.
It's 6 foot by 10 foot. The triptych is just incredible.
It's tubular in the surfing term and awesome in the regular term.
It turned out to be 6 by 10. You had 4 by 8 pieces of.
Well, no, there was one panel. The outside panels are 3 foot by 6 foot. The center panel is 4 foot by 6 foot.
Frank's working on a large painting like that for our Cherry Creek show.
Right? 6 foot by 10 foot canvas.
Are there any other pieces that are people can go view that are hanging somewhere right now in Denver?
Yeah.
You did the one for Eagle Oil or Davis?
No, that was Marvin Davis, City Center building.
City Center?
At Eagle.
So there's a piece at the City Center building?
I don't know where it's at though.
Oh, all right.
I don't know. It's a promotion that'll be out. It's an Eagle that I did.
All right.
That one wasn't magic.
Pardon?
That wasn't magic.
No, I mean, I'd never painted a bird in my life, but they just said they wanted a bird, so I thought I'd paint one, and it was real nice. It came out
It was a beautiful painting.
good.
Okay, do you want to talk about this one here and some of the ideas and mysticism on that piece?
Yeah, well, I want to get into this one, the crows.
This one? There we go.
Many of the things that I'm doing right now have to do with Plains Indian ideas. You have a print called the Sand Creek Massacre. You know, it's a triptych that has crows in it also. That had to do with a particular incident in southeastern Colorado in 1865. And there was, in that particular print, the story goes of the Sand Creek Massacre is this cavalry unit came swooping down, and it sounded like thunder, came swooping down upon 300 mostly women and children and a few old men.
What is the title of that print?
It was called the Sand Creek Massacre, or the Sand Creek Triptych.
Did I have it here?
Yeah, it's a 3-part piece.
In color?
In color? Yeah.
3-part
Was that new small group?
No, it was a big print. It was the long one with the crows.
The crows
the red
look like
ties.
this, the blue with the red on them.
Right.
Oh, okay, all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in one.
Oh, I don't have it here at the...
It's at Rogers.
Oh, I know which one it is. The big...
At any rate, the story, I have a little legend that you're all going to receive. In fact, we're going to be printing up a series of these things on each one of the prints that are sort of handout things. They'll just be more or less run off by Pip Printing or somebody on that particular print and all of these new ones. And it talks a little bit about, this thing makes statements about about the history of that. Much of it's left out. The massacre went on anyway. This cavalry unit massacred all of these people, and the idea of the whole print was that the crows were the only witnesses to what happened. The story really gets rather crude and vulgar and ugly and everything else as what happened after that, but the crows then became a very important thing. The crows to the Indians were always very brave because they were always seemed to be on the battlefield first and always be the last to go. That's where they, hung out, so to speak. And also they were very swift. So they were recognized as being very swift, very brave, very knowledgeable. They were seeing, they saw everything that went on. So to the shaman, who was the the medicine man, if you will, and there were varieties of medicine man. There isn't just one kind. There were all kinds for all kinds of purposes. But the medicine man then would get information from the crows or from the fire. The prints you have called Ponies of the Fire, 50 from the Robe, that's the same kind of thing. Yeah. But the crows then, were message carriers. They knew things. They're very important. Also, the Indians believed that by wearing parts of or a bird or an animal in its entirety, they picked up the characteristics of that animal or bird, and that's the case in this print.
And so the red sash, is it symbolic of the...
Well, the red sash is symbolic. It's, in some respects, that red was very important, but in others, the red has to represents trade cloth. It became known as trade cloth. It was a red kind of flannel, very light flannel cloth. And it used to come from the east in huge bolts. I mean, they just got this cloth, they'd ship more of that than anything else out because the Indians loved it. And they'd make it for wraps. They used it as strands. They'd wrap, everything with it. Yeah.
The Indians were unable to get that sort of color through their own dyes. Is that what?
Yeah. Well, it was such an intense red. And after a while, things just weren't done that way. I mean, most that we know of the history of the Indians and how things eventually evolved came, after the white man, when a lot of these things came along because it came from the east, they began to use it. And they just were on the move so much, they just didn't do things the way, they could. But a color like that is really not in nature that pure. It's just not.
I don't understand why the birds are wrapped.
They're wrapped to fasten.
That's how
to tie.
They didn't have staplers.
They contain, they're to tie to the figures and to hold them on. They're wrapped for other reasons. You can wrap things within them. You can hold the spirituality. You can hold them from flying, from that spirit flying away. A lot of the things I do, I just sort of feel it and move on with it.
The poetry in that piece is beautiful. Is that yours?
Yeah, I spent more time on the poetry in that than I did the entire drawing. That was a 10-color lithograph on 3 stones.
But it just is...
It's real powerful.
It is. I mean, it just makes the piece everything. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that was the first one that I did that I actually used my own poetry in the lithograph. And I have an edition of 12 coming out now. Series of 12 prints and 12 love poems that are just like, real light things and sort of,
But you're gonna be black. I know, but I'll move back and forth. Are you running now?
Yes.
Okay, we can edit that part out. Okay, this is Friday, July 13th, 1984. We're in Master Editions, the studio, Frank Howell. I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining or attempting to explain the process of lithography from the beginning, showing you the materials, the various kinds of materials, the elements that we use, and going through the printing process as much as possible. Here in front of us, we have various drawing materials. We have litho pencils, litho crayons, a rubbing crayon which can be put in a broader area or rubbed onto a piece of chamois or nylon, that kind of thing. Brushes to apply the liquid tush, which is a greasy substance suspended in water and applied to the stone in a very loose wash way. And this is an example of the result of what tush will do on the stone.
when applied, it'll give you a variety of textures and effects in the thing depending upon how you apply it, how much water is in it as opposed to the tush, how you control the drying. This is, going back to materials, this is the sandpaper. We use this for sharpening the crayons. We can get fairly fine points. The crayons themselves and the pencils range in hardness and softness from 5 to 1s, the higher number being the hardest. You begin drawing with the hardest and gradually work to the softest of the pencils, producing an image like we have on this stone. The basis of lithography is the antipathy of water and grease. They simply do not mix. So what we're doing here on a fresh element or stone or aluminum plate, we're going to put down an image with the combination of tush, of some of the drawing materials, and in the case of this print, which is a new one for American design, it's a combination drawing and dry point. The tush was applied, the drawing was put in. If you can see back here, there's a small rendering of what the print will look like eventually. A full-scale drawing of the face and simply an outline of the face. The outline was to put down, and then I put the wash all the way around it and began to put the drawing in, and then through the wash I scratched with an etching needle and X-Acto knives to put in the drawings of the feathers and so on. There are still a number of stages yet to go on this as far as drawing is concerned before it will be etched. So, okay, assuming that we have the finished drawing here, I'm going to introduce our master printer, Ted Braggins, and he's going to explain the etching process. Etching is something of a misnomer. It's really not etching in the sense of etching as we do in the process of intaglio, or etching where we physically alter the surface of the plate by etching down into it with acids. Here, rather, we're creating a kind of minute stencil around the drawing and a chemical process which desensitizes the stone to any more grease. Ted?
Well, as soon as the artist finishes drawing on a stone and it's complete, the printer comes in and takes powdered rosin and covers the stone with that, and takes talc and covers the stone with that. That serves two purposes. The rosin protects the drawing from the etch, and the talc helps hold the gum arabic and etches close to the surface of the stone. There's different kinds of etches which are made using gum arabic as a base. The stone or aluminum plate would be covered with a general overall etch, and then hotter etches made with the addition of drops of acid would be used to go in and do particular areas which needs special attention. After that, the etching procedure, which takes anywhere from 10 minutes to a half an hour, the stone is gummed down and buffed in with cheesecloths and then allowed to sit for that to completely desensitize the stone.
Okay, then Ted, let's move on a little bit. You'll explain then the process that you go through actually for roll-up and getting the thing converted into ink then.
Okay. After a certain time interval, usually about an hour, we then take a turpentine type of solution called lithothene and totally remove that drawing by applying it to the stone or plate and washing that out with the lithothene solvent and rags. We will remove the drawing. After that, we put in a nice greasy coating called asphaltum, and then with a leather roller charge that up with black ink and proceed to wash the stone off with water. As Frank said earlier, Lithography is based on the fact that water and ink don't mix. Here's the leather roller that we use. And this would be used to actually roll ink onto the stone. And water would be put on with a sponge, which would keep the ink from sticking to areas that he didn't do his drawing in.
Yeah. Okay, assuming we've then completed the etching and the roll-up of the stone and we convert it to ink, then we begin the proofing process. First, the stone is proofed in black ink, and when it's satisfactorily stable in the eyes of the master printer, then we can begin another process, and that is selecting the colors that we're going to print in. This then begins the proofing process, or the color proofing process. I will work with the master printer and explain to him the kinds of color that I want. He will begin to mix these colors, and eventually will arrive at an assortment of colors like this, of which he will begin making all kinds of tests by actually putting them on the element and running it through the press, and ask, is this what you want? Is this the way we want it to look? A series of questions matching up what I have in mind and what's happening in the process, what's happening, so that we get as close to what I have intended or what the artist has intended all along. Taking into account that all the time there are certain changes, and you might arrive at a color which will do more for you than what you had anticipated. So there's a lot of flexibility built into this in terms of things that you might do later, but the element pretty much dictates what's going to happen as far as the image is concerned. You can change colors a lot. Here you have an assortment of colors that is being used now in a blend that we're putting down on an element. But you might assume that these are test things. Once the master printer has arrived at the colors that we're going to use, he then takes wet samples and puts them in small containers and puts them aside for the final production of the print. And from that they'll make large amounts of that ink, so that it's never, once you mix that ink, it's never remixed. It's done right from the beginning, exactly the way, in mass, the way it's going to be, so that there's no real possibilities of changes of colors by having to stop and mix a second batch or a third batch and on and on. So all the ink is mixed ahead of time. All the paper is prepared ahead of time. All the paper is torn down and punched, and I'm going to explain that at this time. Actually, I might just as well, because we're preparing for printing. Here we have sheets of paper. This happens to be a printed one, but you can see that it has a cellophane tape backing, which is to reinforce that edge. Then it's punched with these small holes. These holes then match to pins on a stone or on the plate right here, so that this paper is placed down on these pins, so it's in absolutely the same position each and every time it's put in place. This determines then the accuracy of our registration, or how we match up each succeeding layer of color. Excuse me. At this point, you can see the master printer now putting the paper down on the element and matching up the pins and the holes in the paper and laying it down on the element. Then comes a backing sheet, and then comes the tympan, which is a sheet of a kind of acrylic plastic substance with grease on it. Then down comes the scraper bar, which applies a fair amount of pressure and lifts the ink from the element to the paper. All right, assuming now that we understand that the plate is ready to print, we know how the paper was prepared, and it's before us. The master printer now is setting up to put the color down on the plate, ready for printing, as the artist and he have worked out in the proofing process. At this time, the master printer is applying ink to the roller. This happens to be a 4-color blend that is going down. So he's putting down these various colors in the spots, and then he'll begin to work that roller back and forth in this area. He has a guide set up so that he has the same blend, or as close as humanly possible in a hand process, in exactly the same areas, and he gradually moves it back and forth as he's rolling until this becomes a very, very smooth transition color. He knows exactly where he wants these colors to be placed, and he knows exactly where he's going to apply the roller when he moves over here, back to the press and to the element. Ted, you want to go ahead and explain anything else?
Basically what I'm doing now is getting that ink smoothed out and getting it all even on the roller, and then the roller fully charged. My assistant is keeping the plate wet so the ink won't go on the areas where the artist is going to draw. This has to be inked at a special angle in 2 different ways to get this ink exactly where the artist specified. The ink is applied directly to the aluminum plate.
This plate that we're printing happens to be a new print also for American Design called Lakota Sisters. And up on the wall over there is an example of the a proof of what the print will be. This area, this area here is this blend of, was that 3 colors, Ted? The
Yes.
background is what is this right here, and you can see it in this step. This was the paper, and the first printing was to put down these 3 colors, which range from a dark blue-gray to a lighter blue-gray to a very light blue-gray. Okay, the next color then to be put down are the colors that you're seeing now, which is this blend of siennas to yellow, which are the colors that are underneath this tie and underneath the face. And that's what he's doing now, is basically the second run. Again, he's already put down 3 colors, he's putting down 2 more, so now or 4 more. So we have 6 colors down already in 2 runs. There will be another plate of, is that 1 red?
It's 2 reds.
2 reds. So we then have 8 colors going down. There'll be a red here, one kind, and another kind of red up in this area. That'll be a whole nother plate, and we will go through exactly the same process. To make that plate, we have to draw it, we have to etch it, we have to roll it up, we have to proof it, which has already been done before they start production, but it has to go through exactly the same process. And then it has to be printed on top of all of this. So for each print, that impression that you have, the paper has gone through the press as basically as many times as you have colors. In this case, it's gone through the press fewer times than you have colors because we're printing multiple colors at one time. Let's go back now to the press, and we're going to see then it's been inked, the paper has been put down on the pins as you've seen earlier, and now he's going to lift the impression off and come back to the table. He'll set the print down in the area, place where he stacks it. He'll move it to the pile, and then he'll make a check with this against one print that he keeps there all the time, which is called the checker. And each time the master printer pulls one of these images for each and every step, it's always checked for perfection. And this, he's checking to make sure that there's not spots of dust, hair, any kind of fingerprints, any kinds of flaws in this that will ruin that print. He's checking it against color, making sure that the color, the blends are the same areas, the color is full and rich, everything looks right to him, and then he'll place that print then in the stack with the others. This is the first basic check, and it's going on all the time. Once the printing process is completed, all colors are down on the paper. Then it goes through the process completely again against a final proof. We make sure that we have the one we want, and then all of the prints are checked against that. They're checked for imperfections, for areas which didn't quite print. There was a flaw on the paper. There was a fleck of dust. There might have been a fingerprint, a water spot. A number of things that can happen, excuse me, Ted, a number of things that could happen along the way that would cause that print to be less than perfect. If that's the case, then the print, if it cannot be fixed in any way possible to make it an absolutely perfect print, it's rejected. So in the process, we do overrun a few prints to make sure that we've taken into consideration some loss. Our losses are cut to a minimum, however, because we have expert people and in very tight controls on the process. And as I said, each and every step is checked as we go along to guarantee perfect impressions. Okay. I think we covered that stuff pretty good, didn't we? Okay. Assuming then that we've gone through the entire printing process, we put down that color, and then we put down the final key image on top of that, and we have this print then as the product, which is an American design print called Lakota Sisters, due to be released in about 3 weeks. This print ended up being, what, about 8 colors? Is that what figured?
That's right. It's an 8-color print plus black, so really 9 altogether.
Plus black, which is 9-color print then. Once we're satisfied, once the master printer and his assistant have checked out all these papers, the master printer has curated this entire edition and basically has gone through and checked each one that they're absolutely as perfect an impression, as consistent impressions as could possibly be. He has them all stacked according to what they are. They have the proofs, and they have the edition, all of the various workshop proofs, printed proofs, everything in a stack, so we know exactly what's going on. And then he goes through and chops the print. The chop is this system here, and it's the symbol of the master printer and a symbol of the workshop. In placing his chop on this print, basically the master printer is saying that I approve of this according to my standards. I believe this to be the best thing I can do. I believe these prints to be as perfect as they can possibly be, and so on. And at the same time, the workshop is saying exactly the same thing, that we are putting this out to represent our shop, to be of the best quality that we can produce, and that these are consistent, and so on and so on. So the master printer then puts this kit into the chops. One again for the master printer and one for the shop. I need to do it. As so. And that makes a small embossed impression of the master artist or master printer's sign and the shop. Then it comes time, all of this is done and it's put in a stack and it's brought to the artist, and then the signing takes place. This then is the artist's recognition. Pardon the interruption, we had the city doing its duty with the dumpsters outside. After the master printer then has curated, chopped, then the prints are brought to the artist for signing. The signing of the artist then represents and warrants the same thing basically as the master artist or master printer's chop and the shop, that this is a quality print. It has all of the qualities necessary to make it a good, consistent image and so on, and that he accepts this as being something that he wants to represent him as an artist. The first thing we put on a print normally, and there's a variety of ways of sign, but in my case, I sign the print as the title, Lakota Sisters, and then the number, or the proof designation, and the signature. And finally, the date, the year, and the print is signed and finished. Then they're restacked, and the edition is delivered to American Design, upon which it's distributed.
This is July 12th, 1984. Frank Howell is going to give a talk on printmaking. Go ahead, Frank, just start in.
The picture that's bouncing back and forth in front of you, in and out of focus, is of a stone and the various drawing materials that an artist would work with in order to execute an image.
What are those? What are those?
Okay. The stone is very obvious. There are brushes laying on the stone for putting down the tush, T-U-S-C-H-E, which is a liquid substance. It's an oily substance suspended in water, which creates the kind of textured-looking washes that are in lithography. The other materials sitting on the stone there's a crayon, and then there are drawing lithographic pencils. And the pencils come in various degrees of softness or hardness, ranging from a 5, which is the hardest, to a number 1 pencil, which is very soft. Then you have crayons, which are square in shape, and that's for applying broader areas all at once, or enhancing areas in a wash. You can use the edge of it, or the...
What do you want to watch this side? Why don't you look?
The broad side of it. Then in the boxes, there's sandpaper here, which you can use. There's a razor blade, which you can use to sharpen the crayons or pencils. Sandpaper, which you can make even a finer point. That's a box of crayons and a box of pencils sitting there. The liquid is the tush. So those are the materials, and with that you can draw any elements. Okay? For each would have, here's another shot of that. For each color that you would have, basically you'd have another element. So you'd have, if you had red in it, you'd have one of these stones or a plate for red, one for the yellow, one for blue, one for the black or whatever, if those were the colors that you were going to print. And the artist makes his separations himself, and these are registered on pins, and you make little tracings and transfer that to the stones or the plates, and then proceed to draw. And you're always drawing in black and white, and then when it's etched, which we'll show later, and rolled up, it's rolled up in the various colored inks. For each impression that you see, that is out, numbered impression, it has gone through the press basically as many times as you have colors. So one piece of paper has gone through the press 4, 5, 6 times, depending on how many colors. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Here I'm drawing on a stone. This happens to be one of the newest prints coming. It's a combination lithograph and dry point. The drawing is put down around the outside of the face. You can see a textured darker area. That's liquid tush. It was put down all over the stone except for in the face itself. And that was drawn with lithographic pencils in various degrees of hardness. And then after that, I used an etching needle, and the feathers and the hair and certain other parts in it were actually scratched down through in the stone. So it's a combination lithograph and dry point. And this is another one, a drawing in the area finishing up the tonal work in the face. There's a larger shot of the drawing. You can see on the board behind us on the display, I have a small sketch of what the print's going to be in the middle. I have a detailed sketch of the face that's larger, and then on the right-hand side I simply had what is the outline of the face that I traced in, and then I did the wash all the way around it. So that's sort of the materials, and those were there during the whole drawing process.
Yeah,
it's hard for us Italians to talk.
I know. Okay, go ahead. I'm in business.
Okay. And again, this is another. Oh, if you've noticed, I'm resting on the stone with the paper between my hand and the stone. That's because this stone at this point is very, very sensitive to grease or oil, and even the oil in your hands would make an impression. So you can't touch the stone at any time as you're drawing. Any saliva, that would stray onto that stone would actually cause an area that would not print. So you have to be very, very careful the whole time you're working. And the one thing about lithography, there are minor things you can do to change, but once you've made a mistake on this stone, there's really nothing else to do but to start all over. There are not many much erasing or changes, many changes that can be made once you've gotten committed to the image this far.
So if you put some grease down somewhere, you can't take it off.
Well, you can kind of scratch out, but it's really questionable what's happened. Okay, there's a better shot of the drawing up above, and if you'll notice, it's in reverse of the image actually. That the master printer is doing right now is etching the stone, and he's using a combination of gum arabic and a small amount of nitric acid. The amount of nitric acid varies on how hot that etch has to be. Now, etching in lithography is something of a misnomer. You're really not etching the stone, or that is physically altering the surface of the stone as you do in intaglio or etching or in engraving. You're really not in etching. You're using acids. When you etch, you're actually cutting down into the stone through a resist. That's not the case in lithography. The etch in lithography, for the sake of simplicity, is basically creating a kind of minute stencil around the drawing. In between all those little black dots and all these shapes are little spaces of the actual stone. This is going down in, and when he puts this etch, he works it down in between all those little black dots and these areas in the stone. And what that does is desensitizes the stone to any more grease, and at the same time seems to sensitize the stone to the receptivity to water. So when this etch goes down, again, you're desensitizing all of those white areas where you didn't put any drawing material, so it will no longer accept grease. The basis of lithography is the antipathy of water and grease. They simply do not mix. So in the printing process, which we will show later, there's a constant flood of water, which is called a fountain solution, basically. Water that is put over the element with a sponge, and then it's rolled up in ink. And wherever there's water, the ink doesn't attract. Wherever there's grease, as grease of the drawing, it's attracted by the grease in the roller. And so you keep putting down a layer of ink. Okay. Here the etch continues. That's sideways. But it doesn't matter. Here he's just working on specific areas. Once the overall area gets flooded with the etch, then he begins to work back in areas which are much more heavily or darkly treated, and he puts a slightly hotter etch in those areas, so it'll penetrate down to the stone. And why is that out of focus?
Yeah, it's been popping in and out, Frank.
Oh.
Go ahead.
It's on electric or something.
Yeah. I can switch to manual, I think.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay.
So there's a slightly hotter etch used in the darker areas of the eyes and under the nose, in the lips, in some of the other areas which burns down through and make sure that he gets that little stencil effect created, and that it will not plug up later as you begin to roll. This is still the etching process. This one's a little bit out of order. Actually, what he's doing, no, it isn't.
No.
Actually, what he's doing here now is flooding the rest of the etching solution all over the stone. It's kind of too bad that it's upside down.
Well, we can make another one some other time.
This
Go ahead,
is
next.
dramatic that way.
We're all messed up.
Maybe we ought to stop here a minute, Paul. All right, again, this is the one where they're putting on the etch in a broader way. They're flooding on the gum arabic. And he's probably done all the detail etching or just preparing to.
Next one, Dan.
All right, now, I don't know how, this is paper preparation. The way we register or where we manage to get the paper so it lines up for each succeeding color is to you punch the paper, and before we do that we put down a strip of cellophane tape that'll stiffen that paper in areas, and that's what they're doing right now. And all the paper goes through all of this preparation first. This is the preparation process. They're doing the same thing. Here they're tearing down the paper.
Wow.
For recording. What do you want?
That's paper. Mental preparation. Yeah. What's this?
What is this?
That one. You took it. I didn't.
I didn't take this. I didn't take. I don't remember taking it. Somebody must have.
Is the tape still running, or did you?
Oh yeah. We don't know what this is. It looks like one of the master printers at the bathroom, but that's not the bathroom. Paperwork. Just a little humor there for paperwork. Yeah, she's doing paperwork. All right, this is an ink slab. This is where the master printer rolls up the ink on the roller, and that happens to be black ink there. This is mixing color. This is these cans that you see are jars of ink, or cans of ink that have been mixed for specific prints, and then they're all labeled and put away. And before the print is ever started in production, we go through a proofing process, and this is what this was for, proofing up the inks, getting exactly what the artist had in mind. Once we find these colors, then they make wet samples. They're stored from the wet samples, then they make the large cans of ink like you see in the front, and those are put away. And then when we do each color, we pull out those cans and we have an absolutely consistent run. The important thing in the lithography or in any printmaking is that all the colors are the same, everything looks the same from one impression to the next, and the more that's true, the better the quality of the printing. Okay, this happens to be for, she's putting down a blend right now, which is actually a couple of reds, which runs a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. And this is for the print called Lost Warrior, and she's doing that blend now, and it takes a very, very big roller, and it's called a blend.
Is that the result?
Yes, and that's the plate, and that's on the printing press, and this is after she's just getting ready on the upper left-hand corner of the print. She's just getting ready to set the roller down on the plate. In this case, these were colored plates. The key drawing was done on a stone, and this one you can see it rolling across, and you can actually see on the roller where the ink is being picked up and is actually lifted off the roller as it's being deposited onto the ink, you can see a place where there's very little ink left there. And it takes a number of passes. She'll do this, you know, anywhere between 5 to 14 times to build up the level of ink to the right place to pull one impression. Here we have a series of, we have the paper which has gone through the brown printing at the lower part, and then you see the checker, which is one that's printed up above that she always checks against, and then the last pile is the ones that she's running. So she compares all the time against a checker, and stacks the prints as they come along with paper in between them. Okay, now we have down on the press the key element, and you've just seen the red being put down from the plate. This is still the print called Lost Warrior. And you see the key drawing, which is done on a stone, and it's going to be printed in a black. And you can see in the bottom right of the on the stone, on the top of the stone, tiny little bumps. Those are the pins. And the paper each time is set down. These punched, the paper is punched each time it's set down. By this time, with the paper's been through the press 3 times already, putting down the other colors, and she's just preparing to do the last run. And here you see the print being lifted with all the color on it, and it's gone through the press now, and she's pulling it up with the black printed on, and you can see it coming off in reverse of the stone all the time. The entire process is in reverse of what you draw. And again, you see the drawing with the red on it. Everything is on it in the lower part, most of the other colors, which are kind of faded here. The second one is the printed one, and the last one, or the furthest one away from the lower part of the slide, is the checker. Okay, here another master printer is working up a blend. He's working up 3 colors. There's a various blue-gray and a gray and a lighter gray, all of which are sort of blue, but various kinds of grays, which will go into a 3-color blend for another new print that I'm currently working on for American Design. He's mixing all of these colors. And there, he's put down the colors in the blend. Pardon, you can see the in the printer's left hand, toward his left hand is the darker value, and toward his right hand is the lighter value.
Now, do you have to mix up a whole batch of each one of those for the whole to make enough for the images?
Yeah, you mix up quite a bit. Yeah. It's about 1.5 pounds, I'd say.
To do 140.
Yeah, maybe closer to 2 pounds or 5 pounds of ink. I don't know. I can't remember what it is. It's a substantial amount.
Isn't it a lot more than what he has down there?
Oh yes, this was the proofing process. The only reason you see that amount right there, here we're selecting the colors and we're going through proofing. From when he gets done there, and if I say, and I did, say that that's what I want, then he'll take a wet sample from each of those piles, put it in a little canister, and then from that they'll mix larger amounts when they actually get ready for printing, for production. Okay, here it looks as though, yeah, this is the blend plate being put down on the press, and this is a picture of the assistant sponging, or putting down the fountain solution over the element just prior to the master printer putting the roller down and spreading the ink. And there you see the roller going down. Again, the darker value in his left hand and the lighter value toward his right. And it's been sponged, and now he's making several passes with the roller. Then he'll go back and load up the roller again. Meanwhile, the assistant will wet the plate again, and just as she's doing, wetting the plate again, and then he will go back and add another layer of ink, and he'll do that anywhere between 5 to 14 times, depending upon how much ink you have to build up to pull a perfectly clean and flat impression. Now, this is called a tympan, which is a plastic substance which goes in between the scraper bar and the paper. That goes down, and then on the back of that is grease. So as it goes through the press, the tympan spreads the grease over, or grease is spread over the tympan, and tremendous pressure is applied to lift the ink off the plate and put it onto the paper. And here you see an impression being lifted after it's run through the press. Again, the dark gray is at the bottom, and the lighter gray, which is still underneath where he's not quite pulled it off yet.
And after one, they have to reapply the ink?
They have to reapply the ink, everything. So it's a very long process. It takes about 6 to 7 weeks to pull an edition of 140 with proofing time and everything, and to get it proofed. That's 4 or more colors. So it's a very slow process. Again, and very important, and this is why we emphasize this, we always have, with the master printer at all times, each and every impression that is pulled off of the press is constantly, each color, each combination is constantly checked against a checker, one that I've approved and I've even signed on it, approval to print or BAT, and we always compare each impression as it comes off to the one that I've approved to make sure that it's precisely what the other is. If not, it's discarded and we go on. This is a shot of this is one of the small shops at Master Editions, which is the press room where we have the artist's work. It's a bit more private and isolated from the rest of the studio. And we do production printing there, but only if there's not an artist in the studio working. Okay, this happens to be the new print. What's the name of this print?
Lakota Sisters. Called
Lakota Sisters, the one that you saw, the gray blend. This has the key put on it. What they're doing now is putting the chops on the, it's been curated, make sure that it's clean, that's right. What they're doing now is chopping the thing. On one side is the Master Editions, the shop chop mark, and on the other side is the Master Printer's chop. And those chop marks are very important because they're the signature of the shop and the signature of the Master Printer that this is a high quality and very acceptable impression. This would not go on there if the shop didn't approve of it as a shop and the Master Printer didn't. The artist then says, I approve of this by signing it and dating it and numbering it. So it's gone through a series of checks and processes so that when we're done, we have impressions that are, each and every one is as close as physically possible to the other, and clean and no dents, no finger marks, no grease spots, that are perfect to each other. Okay. Here I'm working at the drawing board, hand coloring one of the editions they do. This happens to be an impression. We don't have a good shot of the actual impression, but it's been a lithograph that was done in black and white, and then the parts of it were hand colored, but with watercolor. I hand color with Prismacolor and watercolor, both of which are pH neutral and perfectly archivically sound.
Good. I understand everything now.
Well, that's a part of the process, but it's not by any means a full explanation, but it gives you an idea of what go through to get impressions.
Yeah, this is Prismacolor you call them? What do
Yeah.
I do? Punch on pause here?
Yeah.
Or did I screw that up? It doesn't even respond.
Well, I don't know what we've got going here.
Stop?
Yeah, just